Welcome, Selling Coaching Nation. My name's Jeff St. Laurent, and this is the Tuesday live show coming at you each and every week. Today's topic is a down and dirty one, which is the real work that needs to get done in order to get paid. And we're going to kind of just peel back the curtains behind all the fancy glitz and glamour that some marketers portray in terms of the quick, the easy, the six figures, the, all that other stuff. And we'll talk about some of the realities of it. With that being said, I do help coaches transition to a full-time business. I have a lot of great resources for you, and I do record all of these live shows, and I put them on my website, sellingcoaching.com in the university. So go ahead and check that out. And right on the homepage, there's a great resource for you to get started with. And if you enter your name and email address, you'll get instant access to an audio series called, it's not an audio series, it's an audio recording. It's launching your full-time coaching business, the first 3 vital steps. So not only will you get instant access to that, but that's going to put you in my email community. A lot of great resources and tips I give you there on a weekly basis. And then if you haven't heard already, you should definitely, you deserve to check out my 14-day GoPro Challenge. I'm going to be launching the next one soon. I typically will do them every month or every other month, so I got another one coming up. If you want to learn more about that, it's GoProChallenge.com, or you can also take a look, click a link down below in any of the description, and that will bring you over to the challenge page where you can learn more about what I'm doing with these coaches over 14 days. It's so stinking cool, if I could say myself, to see how we're pushing them, and they're doing more in 14 days than they ever thought imaginable. So check that out down below, or GoProChallenge.com. With that being said, today's topic is the real work. It's the real work. This isn't like the work that marketers portray, where they're just like, hey, you know what, we're going to, 6 figures in 60 days, or, any of the promised results, and a simple strategies to X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to talk about the real work because, and this topic's coming up because I've been, doing this 14-day challenge with people, and really that's been the real work. It's really boiling it down, taking a lot of the peripheral items out of the way of what we think needs to get done, and it brings you down to the real work that needs to get your message out there. And what's come up for a lot of coaches that are going through it, and what's come up for people is, and oftentimes is when it comes time for us to get our message and bring it to market, so to speak, there's a lot of, what am I going to say? There's a lot of stuff in our head, that prevents us from doing that, because we think we have to be a certain way, or portray ourselves in a certain way. We think we have to have this beautiful, perfect website. We think we need to be perfectly polished and with our words, and we need to feel like our message needs to be completely worked out and ironed out, and it needs to be practiced and ironed out, and we need to have all these social media things in play. I need to have my email list in play, and I need to organize these funnels and things like that. And that can be really overwhelming, especially when there's so many different options out there. There's so many small decisions along the way, and with each decision, like even choosing an email provider, or who am I going to use to process credit cards. There's so many different options out there that coaches get kind of dumbed down and overwhelmed with these choices along the way, and then they're not really sure what they need along the way as well. And it just gets confusing. And then it's like they're doing one thing, but they don't really know what they're doing, but they're just moving forward with it. And they don't necessarily do it long enough to really get any results. And, the way it's portrayed in terms of marketing and the way other people are doing it, it just looks as if everyone else out there is succeeding. And that's not the case. Like one of my former clients who I worked with years ago, we worked for a little while, and, they still struggled. They struggled with a bunch of things. And then, they were still in my email community, and they kind of wrote back to me. And, they said like, oh, hey, how things going? What's been up with you? And they wrote me back, oh, things are great. I partnered up with these people, and we just did a webinar for 1,000 people, and we did $40,000 in sales, and it's like, okay, that's great. Now they're marketing that, and at the end of the day, I asked them a couple questions, and I'm like, oh, well, how are things going? Like, prior to that, and he's like, I don't know. This is our first time doing it, and it's like, we collaborated with this. And I'm like, so what's happened since then? And he's like, well, nothing's happened since then. He's like, this is just, a one-time thing, but then now they're starting to market those results. And and I sit there and I laugh and I'm like, that sure, those are good results. I mean, for 1,000 people, you better do $40,000 in sales. You know what I mean? But the point is that when stuff like that's out there, it's kind of misleading because what it's not taking into account for anyone that's marketing some of these things is the what's brought them to that space. And there's a lot of work that's gone into building that audience and cultivating themselves, understanding some of the back end logistics and how things work, etc., that lead up to results that people get. And sometimes, here's the thing, sometimes there's that extreme where it's taken years, decades sometimes to build that. And now they're leveraging that decade of or plus of experience and contacts into this one-time thing where they create these really big results. And then so it's I feel it's kind of unfair to a newer person who's saying like where they get this message that, oh wow, I did this and I did 1,000 people, and I'm not saying this person in particular, but anything for that matter, any marketer that's out there saying this and saying, you can do this too. It's like, well, you could, but don't hook me with that. If you can do this too, yeah, if you got a decade and do this and you can build it up over time, but if they're going in expecting those results right out of the gate, then I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair. That's like me marketing like, hey, I did a GoPro challenge and I put 50 people through and I did $40,000 in the back end and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you can do this too. It's like, well, you could do this too, but that's unfair for me to market that because you're not going to do that for a very long time. Doesn't mean you can't build it up to that. And it doesn't mean that some people can't take that model and start working it and get some of those results. But the point is saying you've got to build your way to that. And there's a lot of work. It's a lot of work that comes into building up to those results. And like some of my clients, I'm helping them out. I'm helping them build their own challenges right now, things like that. And they're getting out. I have someone that just launched, their challenge yesterday, and I'm waiting to hear on the final numbers, in terms of people registered, and then we'll help them through to the back end sales and things like that. But, maybe they've got 5, 6 people going through, and maybe on the back end they do a couple or $3,000 in sales. It's the same miniature version of doing it with 50 people or 1,000 people and getting multiple 5 figures in sales. Like it's the puppy version of that. And so, but we've got to tame our expectations and recognize, right, we can implement some of these models. But if someone's coming in saying like, oh, I did all this great big stuff and I earned all this great big income and luring you in with that, it's really setting you up for the wrong expectations. And so, and while there are some anomalies meaning, people that fall outside the average curve, that's my best version of that word, if that's what it even means. But there are some anomalies where some people come out of the gates and it's just like they do something and they've got, wow, I just earned, $15,000 in my first month. And it's like, woohoo, good for you. How about month 2? How about month 5 or month 50? Are you doing that repeatedly? And that's the thing I want to say to you with some of this work. Like, can you earn and can you start getting some clients? Like, yes. The difference is you're not going to be earning money consistently right out of the gates. And right out of the gates means in the first 18, 24 months easily. And I'll challenge anybody on that. And if they are earning consistent income, it's only because they have some type of a database that they've been building or they're able to leverage when they're starting this business off. Some people are starting from scratch, and especially if you're starting from scratch and you're just working with friends and family, it's going to take a little bit more to start that train off, and get that momentum building and growing that audience and nurturing that audience. And so while you're growing that audience slowly, a handful of people at a time, 2, 3, 4 people a week that are coming over to your email list, that are, maybe joining your Facebook group or whatever it is, you're building and nurturing that. And, you get a client here and there, and then a month or 2 goes by and maybe you get another client. So can you earn money? Yes. Will it be consistent? Most likely not. And therefore I'm trying to set you up with some proper expectations for where you're going with this, mostly so you don't get discouraged. This business is a game of this. It's a game of battling what's going on in here. Some of the steps can be simple. It's just like in my GoPro challenge, the steps over the 14 days are very laid out and they're very simple and they're very straightforward. I just did a live question and answer in my group this morning, just, to keep people going and, keep interacting with them. And, a lot of it is just the stuff that's going on in their head. They're overthinking a lot of different pieces. And my job is to keep them reined in and keep them focused on what are the next steps. Same thing with my mentor coaching clients. Same thing with my group mentor coaching clients. It's keeping them reined in on like just the next step, not just, oh, well, you're starting out of the gates and you're saying, well, what do I need to process? How do I process credit cards? How do I take payment? It's like, you're not even there yet. You're not even there yet. When we get there, let's set something up. But let's start out of the gates and let's start with some of the basic work of cultivating your message, getting it out there a little bit, practicing a little bit, some of those pieces of it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about expectations around some of those things today because, I think a lot of those marketers are very misleading, and it doesn't mean that they're lying about what results they're getting, but it's misleading in the sense of about the results that you can get. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. It's possible for anybody to do anything. It's just a matter of now can you teach me a model? Can you teach me the step-by-step? Can you teach me the basics and the fundamentals of this, the fundamental skill sets involved with this? That's why with the stuff that I do and the stuff that I teach with my mentor coaching clients and with my challenge, my GoPro challenge, with my one-on-one mentoring, anything that I'm teaching, even this stuff where I'm teaching you where it's no cost, some of this stuff. Like if you notice, I'm trying to teach you the fundamentals, the basics, the mechanics that are involved. So you start building a healthy foundation with proper expectations, because that's setting you up for long-term success. Because I say a lot is it's not consistency, it's consistency over time that allows you to create momentum and ultimately income, but then it's consistent income. And that's what we're going for, is we're not going for a 5-figure month. Great, have a 5-figure month. But if the rest of them are goose eggs or just kind of, not much after that, then it's actually kind of deflating. You will have your highs, your bigger months and smaller months. There's a natural ebb and flow of that, even when it's consistent. However, I want you to be able to, get the consistent actions going down there. So when we talk about some of the real work, a lot of the real work isn't the sexy work. It's not the glamour work, and it's some of the work where you're doing live presentations like this and no one's showing up, and you're doing posts. You're promoting things and no one's signing up. I've worked with many mentor coaching clients where we've set them up on a 3-week course, or they're doing a group coaching program or things like that, and or even a free event, and they set it up and we begin to promote it, and no one signs up, no one shows up, no one comments, or very few, for that matter. And I always set them up, especially with my mentor coaching clients, like, hey, listen, let's just set some realistic expectations. If we can get 2, 3, a handful of people, we're good. If we don't get anybody, just remember that's okay, because we're teaching you the mechanics we're teaching you are going to be duplicatable. And the only thing that's missing are people. That's it. The only thing that's missing are people, right? So you can take any model you want that anyone can teach you, whether it's myself or someone else, and the only thing that's missing is people, So if you had something that you're offering and you were able to market and get it in front of millions of people that are where it's a relevant audience, you're going to get signups. You're going to get people showing up and paying up. It's a fact. It's a fact. If you've got enough people. The reality is right now you don't have enough people, and I'm not saying like you just, as you're starting off or even as you're going along, like sometimes I haven't done group programs. I have a decent following. It's not like I have a mind-blowing following of people, but I have a good loyal following, a couple thousand people, 3,000 people the most, I'm guessing. I don't know how many of those are actually really active. Probably a percentage of that, we're talking in the hundreds at any one time. That's not, to me, that's not mind-blowing. Just because, you've got a thing with 1,000 people and or a list with 5,000 people or 100,000 people, it doesn't mean like, oh, it sounds good, the numbers sound good, but it doesn't mean that, oh, all of those people are very active and engaged and loyal to what you're doing. You can create a nice, healthy 6-figure income consistently over time with, a few hundred or so engaged, active people. I've done it over the last 16 years, the number might be 2,000, 3,000, but like, again, if 10% of those people, 10, 15% of those people are actually engaged, you can create a good business from that. So I also, hopefully that's encouraging for you. So you don't start to think like, oh, thousands of people and hundreds of thousands. Like, it's like, yeah, go for it. I'm not saying that's not a bad avenue to go down if you can start building that over time. But the point is like let's rein in our expectations and let's start doing it one at a time. So the groundwork and some of the real work is it's those conversations we have with people, right? Oh, the majority of our business is the raw, gritty, time consuming, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, right? But I'm just the real way of conversations you have with people. And I'm not saying, oh, when I have all these conversations, oh my God, they're time consuming in a bad way. Like they're great, but I'm on most of my day is outside of this stuff or my actual mentor coaching sessions, group sessions, stuff I'm doing with my GoPro challenge. The majority of my day is like conversations with people, emailing people, responding to people, whether it's existing clients or new people. I'm on Facebook Messenger, getting people into my Facebook group. Hey, I noticed you've joined my group. What are you doing here? What's your coaching business look like? Asking questions, responding to people. It's cultivating conversations and relationships. Like that's the real work. That's the grunt work. That's where you either build someone that's loyal and maybe something leads to business. Maybe they hire you, maybe they don't. But either way, you're spending time and you're nurturing those people so that they become your audience and they become a part of what you do. And hopefully they start consuming your information on somewhat of a regular basis. And that develops over time. And then a percentage of those will fall off the path. Some percentage of those will end up staying on and never do anything. And then an even smaller percentage of those will actually end up hiring you. And so, but that's the point of it is that's the real work is it's behind the scenes, all those conversations that are had. I can't tell you how many conversations I have with people on a daily basis, but those are the spaces that I have. So not only now for you as you're starting off or even as you're going on with this a little bit, you have your clients and you service your clients. Most likely you don't, let's say you have a lot of clients right now, but now it's getting into groups, it's getting into, your own group and cultivating that. And I'm not talking a Facebook group necessarily, but other different groups, online groups, places where your ideal client is. Ideally, you've identified them or you've narrowed it down somewhat to some type of an umbrella where they fall under a category. And it's starting to see what other people are posting online. It's starting to see what they're saying. It's engaging with those people. So if you're putting out regular content on a weekly basis, a live show like this, a weekly email, these are some of the basic structures that I set people up with as if they work with me as a mentor coaching client. These basic fundamentals that keep them creating on a weekly basis. You've got to keep articulating your message on a weekly basis. And for some clients, it's so hard. It's so hard. Oh my God, Jeff, I got to do a weekly email. What do I say? And it's just like right from the beginning. And then they start going and then they're on week, whatever, 12 or 20. And it's just like, and some just kind of take off with it and some struggle with it. And then I'll have them do like a weekly show, a weekly podcast, a weekly something. And it's getting off the ground and it's hard for a lot of people, but you've got to force yourself to be able to articulate your message and get it in front of people. And also it's wiping away a lot of those expectations of what it needs to be. Like you're starting off, like you need to get better. And you get better by playing the game. And a lot of people are just afraid like, oh, when I put myself out there, I just want to be this, I want to be perfect and polished and great. Like some of the people that you are, some of your role models. And some of these people have been doing it for a very long time. And so they can come across there like I can get on here and I can have a great camera and lights and microphone and I can speak articulately or whatever you think that I can do and motivate you or whatever else happens. You're like, oh, but you don't have to be like that. Like I wasn't always like that and I'm always working on my craft, but I work on my craft and that's a culmination of 16 years of multiple emails a week of live events like this. I can't tell you how many videos I've done, how many courses I've done, how many group coaching, individual clients I've had, how many stinking conversations I've had over the past 16 years. Like that's the stuff that's not being portrayed to you that I'm portraying to you now is that's the grunt work and it's the grind. And I'm saying it with those terms, not to imply that it's painful, but to show you that it's like, that's the work. That's the grunt work. And trust me, it's great. I love it. Hopefully you love it too. I love creating those conversations with people. I love seeing where they go. I love getting on the phone with someone for the first time and just kind of like hearing where they're at and connecting with them and then being able to kind of get a feel for where they're at and how serious are they about what they're wanting to do. Obviously now with me as a mentor coach, even before as a life coach within their life or their business as an entrepreneur, how serious are they? And are they open to taking a closer look at how I could help them if they were to hire me? And if so, like, let's do a comp session, and are you ready to do something about this? And let's talk about that. If not, don't worry about it. I wish you the best and I'll help you however I can. Reach out to me. but it's hundreds and thousands of those conversations over the course of time that I want you to be having with people. And some of it is like, oh, well, Jeff, I don't know how to have those conversations. I know those are some of the things that I teach you when I work with you, but those are some of the things that you've got to start to learn how to develop and how to have those conversations. And this is where we get that work. This is the grunt work that I'm talking about. This is the real work that we've got to be doing is we got to be speaking a message and putting it out there on a regular basis, the written form, and a spoken form, whether it's a podcast or an audio or a seminar we're doing at some point, right, with live stuff, face to face. And then it's creating a bunch of conversations from that. Like, that's the fundamentals behind everything that we do. And then around that, we just have some basic structured systems so we can make sure we stay in front of those people on a weekly basis and nurture those people over time, because it's over time that people, when the timing becomes right for them, that's when they, hey, let's have our conversation. Let's talk a little bit more about your coaching. Let's talk a little bit more about whatever your other offering is, where they kind of convert and do something with you there and hire you. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. If you're in a position where, you really want some guidance on this and you're really feeling like, oh my God, Jeff, I could really use your help with this. I'm available for one-on-one mentoring. So if that's something that you want to talk more about, simply go to my website, sellingcoaching.com, and fill out the form at the bottom of the Work With Me page. And I will follow up with you, and believe it or not, I'm actually going to give you a call because your number is going to be in there, and we'll just create a brief conversation, a relaxed conversation, and see where you're at. It doesn't mean that, you're going to hire me and move forward, but if you're anywhere along the spectrum of like serious to at least curious to the point of like, I really want to do this, but I have a lot of questions, like I said, sellingcoaching.com, fill out the form at the bottom of the Work With Me page. Let's have a conversation, and we'll decide where to go from there.